Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, the Week in Games, a weekly segment I do way too infrequently to bring you the latest in news, or at least whatever's happened since the last time I've done the Week in News. This has been the saddest June on record, the saddest indeed, up in the Pacific Northwest. It has been rain, cloudy, cold, wet, dismal. This is in very stark contrast to a large majority of the rest of the country that are deeply ensconced in the magical world of heat. Heat. Yeah, a little balance there. We good. Just to give you an example, there was a chart out where in general, by this time, we average about anywhere from 80 to 150 hours of time where the temperature is at least 70. This year we've had exactly five. Five, yeah. So, as someone who craves heat, I grew up all my life in the Pacific Northwest. Most of my friends absolutely are fine. Like, hey, I love a tempest climate. I've been dying to get somewhere warm for a long time, and it's still going to be a while because, well, reasons. But that said, I'm really hoping that in the next few weeks we finally get back to something a little more heat-driven. On the other hand, more people inside, more playing board games, so... And on another note, the last few weeks since I broke my nose, I've decided, well, it's time to lose weight because can't exercise as much. So I've been trying to do something there. Hasn't been real successful, but at least I'm meeting with modest results. But I signed up for a 10K. That's right, me, a 10K. So yeah, there aren't any jogging board games that I think I'd recommend, but hey, in real life, why not? So it's called the Beat the Blurch, and it's in September, and its thing is you'll run through the woods for 10K or a half marathon, which I almost signed up for, but then went with the 10K. For now, I've done half marathons before, so, why not do a 10K? But the Blurch, this animalized creature in a costume, will be chasing you at certain points during the course, and every mile, there's cake. Why not start there, right? I'm not sure that I'll eat cake every mile. I might eat cake every third mile, which means once or twice at most. So anyway, and also, as you can maybe see, those of you who are astute and very detail-oriented, is that I broke down and finally rearranged my game room area. I played Tetris, amazing game of Tetris, to pack and pack and pack and repack and stuff all my games into a smaller space to make room. I offloaded 8 buckets of games off-site. Yeah, it's getting silly. But at least I have enough room now to do prison push-ups, so win-win. All right, enough of my silly life. Let's get to the news. All right, fans of Micro Macro Crime City. Well, the third installment of that game, it's on its way, and I'm excited for it. My wife is excited for it. We love that game. It is a puzzle of great funness. We both have different ideas on how to preserve the legacy of our journeys through it. I'd like to put the map up on the wall and laminate it, and then kind of have like the cards. But she would rather actually mark up the actual map and so show kind of our journeys and all the discoveries. Either way is fine, but if you haven't given it a shot, it's Where's Waldo with a point. So. In other news, we have not one but 2 different games that are distillations of their forefathers into a 2-player affair. We have Tokaido Duo, which takes the Tokaido game and makes it sufficient for 2 players. Apparently someone needed that. Splendor Duel, which, why? I don't know. Guess someone needed that too. The news on the street is that it's meaner, and that it's a little more complex. I, of course, will give it a shot. We played so many games of Splendor 2-player that we don't really see a detriment to continuing to do so, but we're always up for giving stuff a shot. In other news, Terra Nova is a simplified variation sequel to Terra Mystica, and it's unlike the thematically different Gaia project, which is sort of the successor to Terra Mystica. Terra Nova seems to like revisit in a different way and streamline. I don't know. It might be better because I could probably loop more people into Terra Nova. that might be overwhelmed by Terra Mystica, which both Terra Mystica and Gaia Project are top echelon games. Gaia Project is probably my favorite just because of the clever things they do with the point tracks. And we seem to be having, in the reprints category, because there always need to be reprints, we have the Village Big Box. Now, sort of like Libertalia, when it got reprinted, we have Libertalia basically took an old game. It was like brown, dark hues, kind of like that, and it turned into this light, whimsical, "Ha ha! I'm a pirate," kind of vibe, and it was well received. Plus, it had a solo mode. I was not a fan of Libertalia, mostly because not because of the game, but because of the terrible experiences I had with the group of people playing it, and I'm just like, I don't even want to remember this game anymore. But Village, on the other hand, its big box looks more like Keyflower or something than the original Village, and I liked Village. It wasn't like awesome, but it had some clever things about, your legacy and descendants going before you and all that stuff. So I'm kind of looking forward to it, and radical art style aside, I think it probably has an opportunity, particularly if it includes some of the expansions in the big box. So in big news is GMT is preparing to ship a game I've been waiting years and years and years for, called South Point China Sea. This is not an unknown topic in today's world. There's already real-world rumblings in that area, and this game looks really good. It looks like it has kind of an interesting, almost a Twilight Struggle-ish kind of feel going on to it. Not saying it is Twilight Struggle, but I am saying that it has that kind of feel. And so, I don't know about you, but the only thing I could say is gimme, gimme, gimme. So, anyway, let's get to my question of the week. So here's a real simple one, won't take long to answer. I was at a game night the other day and someone says, what is the most complicated game that you own? Which is interesting. He didn't say what's the hardest game you had to learn. It was mostly what is the most complicated game that you own. And there are a lot of them in the running, but I actually think it was pretty clear the one game that I think is the most complex framework that I have. I mean, there's a lot of war games that have complex rule sets, etc. But the one that was the most complicated game to really just absorb, abscond, and be able to be proficient at was High Frontier. High Frontier is a massive, very detailed, very scientific, just game of space exploration. Very much not Star Wars. There are no lightsabers. There are no tribbles. This is legit science and advancement. Not only with it, but the expansion modules as well bring together probably a very complex. Now, what's helpful is that it has a rulebook that is one of the best I've ever seen. At least the third edition, the High Frontier, the latest one, has a rulebook that does everything it can in the best possible manner. I was astounded at how good the rulebook was. That doesn't mean it was an easy game to grok. It just meant that at least you could. So I could live inside this game for years playing it. I really do feel like it. So that's the answer. What about you guys? What are your most complex games, either to learn or just the fact that they are complex innately? So there. Let's get to my 3 games. Alright, game number 1, Glenmore Chronicles. Now, I have the original Glenmore, which I could probably fit about 5 of them into this box. Glenmore reintroduces all of the elements plus a bunch of sort of expansions and additions in the form of what they call Chronicles into the game. I have not set it up and played it. Well, okay, I've set it up, I just haven't played it yet. But I originally bought this on Cool Stuff, or at least I thought it did, and then it turned out what I really bought was the expansion. I rarely make a miss like that, but I happened to make a miss that time. So, of course, I can't have an expansion without its mommy. So, there you go. I hope the two have wonderful bonding time together. I will probably check it out in the future. It looks great. The artwork looks much better, although the original wasn't bad either. So, and then we have Wonderland's War. I snagged this at the local store. It is a Druid City Games game. It's basically like it's a weird and quirky tea party table. Then you go off to battle in certain parts of Wonderland. It has a lot going on, and I did set it up. I did play it a couple times. I don't know that I'll do a review of it. This might be the reason this might be the one game that gets me to start doing threshing floor segments where I basically go through all the games I don't decide to review. Nothing wrong with it, just kind of like, yeah. Anyway, that's for another time. And finally, Gnoming Around. Now, there was a game called Golf, or it was, oh man, it had a predecessor called something golf or easy golf. Basically, it's a Grandpa Beck game. Now, I got a version of this for free at a game show where they're just like, hey, free, take it off my hands, unopened, whatever. I threw it in the box. I had the original one for years, just sitting around going, why am I keeping this? Like, it probably sucks. I mean, it's probably like one of the other 100 games that you play once or twice and go, it's fine for someone else, but I'm deluged by awesome games. So I threw this in the garbage. And then when I was taking it out to the trash, I remembered that I had a game night the next day with some very casual audiences. I'm like, you know what? I should at least give it a shot. If it sucks, it looked like it only takes 15 minutes, we can throw it away and get on to the good games. So I did. I brought it out. I brought out the original of this, and I set it up, and I'm like, okay, here we go, guys. And we played 8 games of it before they wanted to switch to another game. And then they're like, hey, we want to get a copy. And I'm like, it's out of print. And then I did some research and found out that they'd done the original one, which is very much golf specific. This one they decided to get cutesy with Gnoming Around. Turns out Grandpa Beck's not as dumb as we thought. And so I ended up buying this, brought it back to them again, played another 5 rounds of this. The improvements on this are good. They did a lot of streamlining to make it even better. Basically, it's kind of like a golf game, but it's more like, you have 3 cards of 3 rows and columns. So you have 9 cards, 2 you flip up. You just take your turn going. It's like think Rat-a-tat-cat, where you're just like, oh, do I want this card? Yeah, that's better than that card. But if you get rows or columns of the same number, you get bonuses. There's a few other things. Honestly, I was blown away that I actually threw this game out when, in fact, it's probably going to be the game that they're going to ask for a long time, because it's actually more fun than I thought it was. Again, not good to get too snobby, because sometimes something surprises you. All right, that's it. Now let's get to Tim Machine. The year is 2009. And it wasn't a great year. I definitely remember that year. It wasn't great at all. It was the year of the recession and unemployment skyrocketing. I remember dealing with that. I don't know how the other parts of the country dealt with it, but we certainly had our fair share of not too happy times. Thank God I was able to find work. We got through it, but man, not the best top story I would be wanting for in 2009. The top movie was Avatar. I have seen that 0 times, but I've seen parts of it, probably about 10 or 11. It just puts me to sleep. I know, I'm a uncultured swine, but it just didn't do it for me. Song was Boom Boom Pow by Black Eyed Peas. I don't remember that song at all, but I got a feeling someone else does. The book was The Lost Symbol by Dan Brown, who I've read hit or miss a little bit. Again, not one that I dived into too heavily. The game I played most that year was Small World. Small World, its predecessor Da Vinci was a great game, but not really well heralded. Small World, adding that fantasy thematic theme, just put it over the top. It was being played everywhere at that time, at conventions, at my work, at lunchtime, in the evenings. Definitely playing a lot of it. The top games of that year, not just the one I played the most, but the ones that I really enjoyed were Dungeon Lords, which was a quirky take where you get to be the dungeon master, not the guy going through it. Small World, like we talked about, and Middle Earth Quest, a game that shall live in perpetuity. It is still the finest, best, one of the top Lord of the Rings games that I have ever played. So good, so deserving of a reprint. Might never have. What game would I have bought if I'd known then what I know now? Vasco da Gama. Just to mess with people. There we go. And now let's get into 2010. What was the top story there? The WikiLeaks was touted as the top story. We all remember, many of us remember Julian Assange. His fate still Still there. The top movie was Inception. I did get to see this one. It blew my mind. I got to see it in my boss's house, and he had the whole big mega movie studio in his house kind of thing. And so it was like being in the theater, and wow, that was crazy, crazy. The song was Tick Tock by Kesha, not to be confused with the technology that children are using these days and that I'm subjected to every once in a while. Like, hey, look at this. I'm too old. Get off my virtual lawn. All right, and then The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest was the top book that year. Again, not quite finished reading that one. I just haven't. What game did I play the most that year? That was an easy one. That was the year of Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders took me by storm. Again, in the same way Small World before it, Seven Wonders was like, wow, 7 people can play this, and it takes about the same amount of time, and it's awesome, and it's fun. Took it to camp, took it to shows. There's Seven Wonders. It was delightful. I still have my copy. I don't think I played the actual Seven Wonders in years. I don't know if Architects will replace it. I still have a special spot on the shelf and in my heart. The top games that I played in general, the ones that I liked the most, Seven Wonders was great, but the best one was Merchants and Marauders, no question there, absolutely no question. Sid Meier's Civilization, which that was the one by Kevin Wilson. It was the most direct translation of Civilization to a board, so they didn't do any streamlining or liberties. It was like, this is Civ, the board game. Sorry. And then finally, the other game that I played a ton of was Earth Reborn, which was, at the time, a modular tactical game that had a ton of interesting things. Before the app-driven sort of phenomenon, where you're like, hey, open this, or go to this and unlock this, or find your way through and stuff. It was a stellar mission-based system done by the guy that made Dungeon Twister, so that was that. What game would I have bought if I'd known then what I know now? Dominant Species. I really would have got on that train a little faster than I did. And that's it. That's what we have for June. I expect the next time we talk, it'll be July, and I'm hoping I'm going, wow, too much heat. I dare that to happen. I love heat. I will never, yeah. It would take an amazing act for me to say too hot. Last year it was starting to get hot and ended up with high temperatures of 107, a record here. So I was in heaven. Anyway, thanks again. We'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.